Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
The podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today, we are reading a series that I've read a long, long time ago, maybe about 20 years ago now, maybe like 18 years ago now, called 100 Bullets by Brian Azzarello and Edward Riso. Had you heard of this, John?
No, I don't even think it had if it come across like you would have mentioned it in passing. I don't think you it stuck out as one oh yeah. But then I think maybe it was when you said, oh, we could read that sometime, but it's just been down on our list. And so yeah, I didn't know anything about this one going into it until you said you were like, oh, this is one we can bring up now.
Yeah, I just thought there's a bunch of these trades. It's got a pretty interesting premise. There are 100 issues of it, which you might have guessed from the name 100 Bullets. That was the plan all along. He had a pretty solid bullet point script or whatever to go from on this idea and concept. But I think it's two omnibuses. They have two omnibuses for the whole series.
I'm glad they were able to that he came into it with kind of a complete story.
Yeah, and this is round 2 of Vertigo, where it was the good titles started coming out again from Vertigo. Because there was the initial stuff, right? Hellblazer, Preacher, Swamp Thing, and then there was a bunch of weird shit for a while. And then they redid it. They brought Ed Brubaker, and actually, did Ed Brubaker do any? I don't know if Brubaker did any Vertigo series, but they did. Brian Azzarello came in. They had Brian K. Vaughan as Why the Last Man, started. So Fables, I think, also started at the same time. So the kind of second run of Vertigo being really good started with 100 Bullets as one of those titles. So I think I started reading it when it was on Trade 3, I think.
So okay, wow.
Still pretty early. Going. Yeah, because there's I don't know, a lot of trades, 20 trades or something of it. So, but yeah, when I started, there was only maybe 3 or 4 trades out.
Well, I remember the only thing I otherwise when looking at it remembered is that I remember we had read some Brian Azzarello when we did I think Dark Knight Master Race.
Yes, yeah, he did. He was not the ghostwriter. He's the guy that's writing all the newer Frank Miller stuff for DC. So Frank Miller would be this is what I want to happen, I think. He might even give page breakdowns and stuff. And then Azzarello will maybe write the dialogue and whatnot. I don't know exactly, because a lot of the dialogue still feels like Frank. So they collaborate together in some way. I'm not 100% on how they do that, but he's kind of Frank Miller's right-hand guy as far as that's concerned for writing the new stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, we liked all that stuff. I know people shit on Frank Miller's later Dark Knight stuff, but I'm a pretty big fan of it still. So
yeah, you should definitely give it a chance, especially reading the whole story together. Maybe it wasn't quite. It's it's not quite as good as the first one, the Dark Knight.
Yeah, the first one's very special, obviously.
Yeah,
but I thought Master Race was pretty damn strong.
Yeah,
as a comic. So, but anyway, so 100 Bullets. The concept is pretty interesting. I remember trying to whenever someone would come into the comic book store and be I want to read a new series, and there was all these new Vertigo titles you could pitch people on because they had really good, strong, easy pitches. Why the Last Man? What happens if all the men die on Earth and you're the last man on Earth? What happens there? There you go. Do you like that idea as a concept? Then buy this book. Same with 100 Bullets. The concept for 100 Bullets is what if someone came up to you and was you know how you were wronged by someone back in the day? Well, here's a briefcase full of proof that those fuckers did it, and here's a gun with 100 rounds of untraceable ammo. and you're also immune from, like, if you choose to kill them, you don't have to worry about any legal stuff. So like it's legal murder basically, if you want to, and you have to choose whether you want to do that or not. So that's a pretty fucking awesome concept. Just starting off with, um, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so like I didn't realize that until we were reading, because like that's how it starts, right? And I'm not giving anything away. I just said that. So like, but that's like the main premise. But then I expected like that we were following just one person through. So then when we start and then that same situation offers someone else, I was like, oh, cool. So like this is going to be a reoccurring thing where yeah, people who have been wronged get a way to get back
If they
without legal
want.
consequences if they
Yeah.
want to. Exactly. Yeah, that's true. It's very much like, here you go, do with this what you will.
Yeah.
You know,
You don't have to kill anybody if you don't want to. You could just like say no and leave it at that. But the people that they pick to give this briefcase to have been pretty wronged. Their lives are usually pretty destroyed. And for you to not want payback for what was done to you is, you know, uh, it's going to be real hard for you to not choose to do that, especially when they're like, it's legal murder. No one would care and you would get revenge. So have fun. So the first, this trade is also interesting because it's broken up into 3 stories. I don't know if you knew that, John, but I kind of forgot. I thought the first trade was just about Dizzy, the main character in the first story, but
yeah, no, that's what I was saying going into this. I expected, and then like when I turned to the next uh book, I was like, oh, this is a different person. I was like, oh, but I figured it out right away. Like, oh, okay, like they're doing this to multiple people, so that's cool.
yeah. So we start off with the first story with our main character named Dizzy, who is a Latina woman. I don't know if did they say it's like L.A. I don't remember where they say it is. It's probably L.A. if I had to guess. But she was convicted of murder. Um, was it murder or was she was convicted of? Yeah, it was murder. Like other people were killed and she was there with a gun and all this stuff. So I think she was convicted of like murder by association kind of thing. Like how if you're in a group of people that commit a murder, you are also guilty of murder, like that concept. But we find out that like her husband and son were killed while she was in prison. Because basically she's like a gangbanger or was, and she was trying to get out of it because she had just had a kid, and so that's when all the shit went down and she got arrested for murder. So she's been in prison, and while she was in prison, her husband and son were gunned down by a rival gang, and she, for some reason, is let out early. They don't really say why, do they?
Nope.
Okay, yeah. So it seems like she's also, I don't know, she's confronted by a bunch of women in the showers. Do you think this is just to show like scantily clad women? Because obviously everybody's naked in the showers, but they're like their legs are conveniently covering, like they're always like placed in a certain way so you can't see anything, or they're in shadow.
Yeah, the towels draped over their neck to cover them. Yeah.
But yeah, so it seems like she's kind of not top dog or anything. It seems like there's other people who are against her, but then she holds her own against them and they don't really mess with her. They just kind of razz her a bit. But she is getting out early for some reason. She got what, 3 years for murder, basically. And then they let her out on like good behavior. Um, as you do, you know. So as she gets out of the prison, and then actually, you know, I don't think it is LA because there's a elevated train, so it's not LA. I don't know. I don't know where it is. But um so she's on the train out of prison and this man gets on the train who's in like a suit and she's just in like a jumpsuit or whatever, like whatever she came into prison with. And this guy sits down. He kind of looks like he's with the FBI or something. He's in that kind of a suit. And he's like, "Hey, so if you want revenge, I got proof that these people killed your husband and son. So, you know," and he like hands her a briefcase. He's like, "There's a gun in it. There's 100 bullets that are untraceable, and here's proof that of the people that killed your son." And then he like she opens the case and he shows her like the pictures inside of the people, and she's like, "I don't know who they are." And it turns out that they're dirty cops. So, uh, she was framed, or like she wasn't framing. Sorry, they were framing the rival gang or whatever for some reason, we don't know why, for the murder of her son and husband while she was in prison. So she always thought it was just the rival gang, but that is not the case. So, you know, she's like trying to figure out, a lot of this comic is her trying to figure out what to do with that information. Does she believe it? You know, because just because someone said something doesn't mean it's true, right? So,
Yeah, this
um,
this random, guy sits down next to our train. He's like, "Hey," like he barely introduces, like, "I'm Mr. Graves or Agent Graves." Pardon me. So we know he's some kind of agent with some kind of agency. And then he's like, "Yeah, here's this briefcase. Here's this information. Do with it what you will. See ya."
yeah, yeah. And so, uh, she's trying to figure out what she should do. She just keeps the information, but she goes home, and while she's home, we kind of learn about her family life. Like, is it her sister or her mom that's at her
That's
house?
her mom. That she.
Okay,
That's her mom.
it's her mom. So her mom is kind of just like, you fucked up, and what are you doing here? And then there's like, I get maybe her sister's daughter or her sister. I don't know. There's a little kid here too. Um, so
Oh yeah, I think that's well, maybe it is her sister. Yeah, because she says, "Hey, where's Mama at?" So yeah, it's got to be her. I
right, I
think it's
thought
her
you was
little
talking about
sister.
Mama, like her sister's her mom. So yeah, but she has a gun. Like she's carrying this gun with her. I guess as you do if you're like a gangbanger, you're not afraid to carry guns. But so she leaves the house because her mom's giving her shit. But she goes into the back garage area because it's like a separate garage. And I don't remember the guy. What's her? Oh, Emilio. That's her brother, right?
Emilio. Hmm.
So her
Yeah, that's her brother.
brother, we found out is a car thief, and I liked his. He doesn't steal him like by breaking into him. He like puts on a vest and pretends to be a valet, and like goes in front of a place when someone parks to get valeted, and then he's like, "Oh, let me take your car, sir," and then like just drives off with it. So, uh, it turns out he's kind of become like the head guy of the gang, um, like no one messes with him anymore. Just like I guess her husband used to be the head of the gang, um, and so we're just setting up like their relationship and stuff. It seems like they're pretty tight, um, and then she goes for a walk and I guess notices someone following her, and it turns out it's the cops that. Was this a coincidence? They just happened to be the cops.
No, I don't think so. I think they were maybe it was
Oh,
they
they
driving
do
and they
call her by
noticed her.
name. They're like, "Hey, Dizzy,
Yeah.
I'm talking to you." So I guess they were looking for her because she just got out.
Oh yeah, because they got wind of her parole. That's what it was.
Yeah, and I think they're trying to figure out why she got out because, uh, as we find out, they were responsible for her husband and son's murder, and so they're like, "But how could she be out? Because she was there for murder. How could she get paroled? And like, does she know something? Is she like, was she a snitch? Is she trying is she out because she's trying to get dirt on us? Like they're trying to figure it out. And as they do that, they kind of start harassing her. They like get out of their car and throw her against the wall, and they find out she has a gun. And then there's like a whole scene where they almost shoot her and stuff, but then they arrest her for holding a gun because she's a paroled felon. Um, and then it turns out when they take her in, or they call it in. They say
They
like,
call it in, yeah.
they call it in. They're like, okay, we got this girl, and they're like, just leave her alone. She's fine. So like, it seems like it's true. What Mr. Graves is the man that gave her the attache case and with all the information and the gun and stuff. So Mr. Graves is like, or Agent Graves is like, it seems like what he said is true. Like this gun, and you have immunity, whatever you're doing. So if this is involved with those cops, like you're not going to get arrested again for even holding this weapon, it's all free and good. So so she gets away and the cops are like, that is very weird, we don't like it, but I guess we have to let you go. So they let her go, she goes back home, and then she's still like trying to figure out if she's going to go through with it. um but we learn a little bit more about Emilio. We see him like he's definitely high up uh leader in this gang. He's pretty much taken over, and they talk about Hector, her husband, how he had a lot of respect, but then when he tried to give it up, like he still tried to control stuff. And, but now Emilio's in charge because he died. So, I mean, they're setting this up. Did you like figure any of this out beforehand, like before they revealed it, John?
No, I thought maybe still like it seemed like Amelia was just talking about being the one, and it seemed like like maybe there was a little bad blood, but that like Hector was really trying to get out of it, because of his and Dizzy's kid.
So we see Emilio, and they're talking about that, and then we cut to the cops, and they're still trying to figure out what the fuck happened. How could an ex-con get a gun permit? Like this doesn't sound right. They've been cops for a while, and they're dirty cops, so they're extra suspicious of stuff. And they're at a strip club, so they're talking it over, as you do. When you're a sleazebag, you're you're a dirty cop. You're going to a strip club. You're harassing people. So, now later on, they have a strip club with one of the other storylines. Do you think this is the same woman? I didn't go back to check, but they prominently show her tattoos. Was this the same woman that was dancing for the guy in the second story?
I didn't know. Now I have to pay. Yeah, I have to see close attention. I didn't see if it was the same one. I don't think so, because the other one, it was like a strip club. It's the one that has like the booths, I guess, because there's like glass between them.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that. Maybe I was not paying attention enough in that one. But yeah, so the cops are suspicious. Then we cut to the women in her life. I guess they're probably like the old gangbangers that she used to run with. And they're all mothers now, and they're talking about how old they are. They're like, man, we're 25. Like, we're too old to be, we're too old for our men. They either want to fuck 19-year-olds, or we're too old for the young guys. Like the guys we want to fuck, we're like considered, cougars or whatever. They're only like 25. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, so we see there's some, like, I guess something goes down, and Emilio rides up and says like, hey, come with me, there's something going on. And it turns out there was like some mass killing of who was it? Who was here?
So these are some of the other guys that were like with Emilio at the either, I guess, the back of the place, or like a.
Oh yeah, that was at the garage, at her garage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it turns out, because she's on site, it looks like maybe he runs in, or she runs in. Emilio doesn't run in, but she runs into the crime scene, which I was like, there's no way she would get into the crime scene, but for dramatic effect, I guess. And she gets arrested just because she's at the crime scene.
Yeah, because there's so many cops there.
Yeah, exactly. But they let her out immediately again. And the police are like, this doesn't make any sense. Now we meet the next guy. There's another guy named Shepard who's like the handler. Like Graves is the guy that sets all these things up, but Shepard comes around and he gets her out of jail, and he also works for whatever agency is doing this, undercover mission thing with the attache cases. So Shepard gets her out of jail. Then she goes back with Emilio. She's still trying to figure out whether she wants to kill these cops though. But pretty much Shepard gets back with her. Like, she's at church and he walks in and he sits next to her and he starts talking to her. And she's like, what should I do? He's like, do whatever you want. I mean, like, obviously you should get payback. Like, it's funny because they're not pushing her like explicitly, but they're also like, but you want payback, right? Like, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want to kill the people that killed their son and child, their child and husband or whatever, right? So
yeah, it was so terrible, and they're evil, obviously. But hey, do what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, but I would do it. I think anybody else would do it. So he walks out of the church after giving her this very pushing conversation to get her to do what he seems to want her to do. And then as she walks out later, the cops are waiting for her. And okay, so they've come up with, they think they know what's going on. They're like, okay, so she must be in on everything because she was at the crime scene yesterday where there was like a whole drug thing that went wrong and people got killed. like she must know everything about what we're doing. So let's bring her in on it and either kill her or figure out how to make this work. So they arrest her, they bring her to an alley or it's like a warehouse. And as she gets there, um, I guess there was a message sent to Emilio, or they sent to whoever was supposedly killed her husband and son. Um, so she gets put there, and I guess was it Shepard that gave him the address that said like meet us here. So Shepard sent like notes to everybody that was like everybody that we want you to kill meet here. Um, so she gets brought to the meeting place of the cops and the person that was behind everything, and we find out as she walks into this building, Emilio's there. So obviously, Emilio is the guy that basically told was working with the cops to kill her husband, and the son was just collateral damage.
Yeah. And the main reason is because they're dirty cops and they're basically now they're pushing drugs, it looks like, right? Like they're selling heroin.
Yeah. So what was going on? Like the background is Hector, who was her husband, uh, was trying to run the drugs and everything, like control everything while not being officially in control. And Emilio didn't like that, so he went behind Hector's back to get a new source for drugs, and that was these two cops. Whenever they would do a drug bust for like heroin and stuff, they would just like take it out of, like they would call him and he would take a bunch of it, and then I guess they'd bring like 1 kilo or whatever for evidence or some shit, right? Like, so he was getting like free drugs through them, and then would kick back money to them. I'm assuming, um, and so that's why they did it, because he was trying to take control from Hector, because Hector was supposed to be out of the game, but he was overstepping his boundaries. Um, so now that Dizzy is here, the police officers are like, well, Hector, you opened your big fucking mouth. That's why Dizzy knows about this. And Hector's like, I didn't say anything, but they don't believe him. So they start shooting him in the legs. Um, and then, like I said, it is revealed that he was the one who, got her son and husband killed. So, as it looks like they're about to kill him and let her live to be like the new head drug dealer person, she's like, fuck that. She pulls out her gun and she shoots them dead. And then Hector's like, haha, yeah, that's right. Like we're together in this, right, sister? And she's like, fuck you. And then she shoots him too. Or no, does she shoot him? No. She just pours. That's what she does. It looks like she's going to shoot him. And then she pours heroin on his head and leaves him to get arrested, but does not shoot him.
Yeah, no, she pours heroin him and the two cops that she killed to make it look like a drug deal gone bad.
Yeah, so basically, like the dirty cops and him, are like she called 911 or whatever. So like it's gonna look like there was some drug deal and he was working with them, and now he's gonna get busted and then go to prison, which is gonna be really bad for him. And she gets away scot free. So even though she didn't do what they wanted, like she didn't kill anybody, well, I guess she killed them, right? She killed the people she was supposed to. She didn't kill Emilio, which was not part of what Shepard and Graves wanted, right? So that is the end of the first story arc.
Oh, except that Mr. Shepard pops up and was like, "Hey, you did a good job." And she's like, "Okay, am I done?" And he's like, "That's up to you." And so she looks back, kind of like, "Well, I guess I'm leaving this city," and hops in the car with him.
Yeah, like what else is there? I've kind of like burned all my bridges. I killed my brother, or like my brother's going to prison, and I killed 2 cops. So yeah, she gets in the car with him. So it's like, okay, she's now on board with this agency, whatever they are. Then we get the second story arc, and we meet this guy named Lee who works at a bar. He's a bartender. We find out that he um, lost everything. Like he used to be like a chef, right? Like he owned restaurants and stuff. Um, and it turns out that somehow, apparently it was false, but the FBI found child porn on his computer, and that was not good, obviously. So they arrested him, and he got everything taken away. His wife left him. His kids left him because they obviously think that he was guilty of that. So because it was on his computer. And he's like, I don't know how it got there, but it wasn't me. And then the only job he can get now that he's out of prison is, working at this bar that's pretty seedy. So as he's working the bar one night, Agent Graves comes up and is like, hey, I got something you might want to see. And he opens the briefcase and he says, this is the woman who put that stuff on your computer. Like, there's all those, you don't know her, but she's the one who did it. And he's like, well, what the fuck am I going to do about it? Because he also doesn't know if he should believe Agent Graves. And Graves is like, well, I think you should kill her. Here's a gun, 100 bullets, and they're all untraceable, of course. And Lee is like, well, I mean, where the fuck am I going to find her? Like no one's going to come into this place, like especially her, because she looks like a very rich, fancy lady when he sees the picture. So he's like, yeah, she's not coming into this bar. And Graves is like, well, actually, she's coming here tomorrow because there's some event, like what is that called? A pub crawl, where they rented a limousine and they're going to a bunch of different bars and drinking, and she's part of that. So she will be here tomorrow night. Here's the gun. Do what you will with that information. So this is where I was asking, is this the same strip club or stripper? It does not look like it is. They're not showing her tattoos in the same way. So a different strip club. Yeah, like you said, it's a booth, I guess. I didn't realize it was a booth. The way that they're showing it, now that you said that, I'm like, oh, those are windows. But I thought those were just the panel borders, is what I thought. So makes sense in my mind, at least.
Yeah, I could see that, especially if you're going, because there's only one little panel where there's like an insert coin. Otherwise, all the rest it's just like someone looking and then them dancing. So
Yeah, I just thought it was the lighting, because the one thing I liked about these strip club scenes compared to the rest of the comic. So the rest of the comic is very drab. It's very yellow and brown and black. I guess to show like the grittiness of it, right? It's gritty crime stuff. But then when they go to the strip clubs, it's all like neon orange and red and yellows, like bright colors. And the way that they did it, like the shadows are there obviously because they can't show everything, but like um I thought the contrast in those two things were very well done, and I liked it. Whenever they had the strip club scenes, it was like, oh, the colors really pop and it looks good. And I know what you're thinking, John. No, it's not just because there's naked ladies on the page.
no, I agree with you. I think the art on those pages in particular, because it does a really good job of utilizing the shadows and outlines of things because of that. And yeah, some of the art on those pages is really cool, actually looking.
Yeah, I liked it. There was some that I was like, the black and white, like the actual art of this before it was colored, would look really cool too, because it's just like the shadows are there, but none of the color is, so it would look really like stark black and white. It would look really good. But yeah, I liked the strip club scenes because of that, the way that they showcased the color and that really popped compared to the rest of the issue. So anyway, we cut back to the bar the next day. And Lee is like, yeah, I'm working tonight. Like he pulls a double shift because of that. Like he's like, fine, I'll be there for it. And on cue, these rich people come in and they're like, hey, it's my girlfriend's birthday. We hired a pub crawl. Let's fucking drink. And then immediately we got a scene where I thought it's happened because I wasn't like Lee just pulls out a gun and shoots her in the head. And I was like, holy shit, I forgot that happened. And then we turn to the next page and she's still alive and he didn't do that. So did you get fooled by that page?
I did too. Yeah, I was like, oh shit, that he had no hesitation with that. But then the little panel on at the end and the beginning of the next, like, excuse me, that made it cool. Like it was obviously it was in his head as a daydream, but that was done very well.
Yeah, I thought it made sense that he would do that. Like if you're gonna do it, just fucking do it right away. But no, he didn't. He hesitates, and then he's kind of like waiting for the moment, and then he follows her into the bathroom, and he pulls out a gun, and then two people walk in, and they're about to have sex in the bathroom, and he gets caught in the bathroom with a gun, like waiting outside her stall, and they're like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And he's like, "Oh, I saw a rat. I'm gonna shoot this rat with a 9mm." So they're like, "Well, you should probably just use traps. Guns are a little overkill." He's like, "Okay, my bad." So he does let her get away, but he steals like a little pendant that has a hand on it and the number 13 in Roman numerals. And I don't. Did you notice that? Like, did you catch what happened there when you first read this?
No, no, I didn't see initially. I had to go back the page and be like, oh, okay, that's something from her blazer. But I couldn't tell. I wasn't 100% if he took it off or it fell off.
I think
Um,
because he hands her her jacket, or something happens where her jacket is on the counter, and he just like, I guess it was like on her lapel or something, or in her pocket, and so
yeah,
she,
because he sets down drinks next to it, but I guess he's a good sleight of hand. And because they don't show it explicitly.
yeah. So, uh, the next day, he goes back to the strip club. He actually reaches out to his son and is like, "Hey, I want you to meet me at the bar tonight. I got something to show you. Like, it's going to be great." And his son, who hasn't talked to him for a very long time because he thinks he has child porn and stuff, is like, "No." And then eventually he's like, "Okay, I'll meet you there." And then he goes to the strip club and is like, "Hey," to the stripper that he likes there, and he's like, "How about we go to a bar tonight? Why don't you meet me? It's going to be like my rebirth day. I'm going to be a new man." And she's like, "I normally don't, but okay, I will."
You're funny though.
Yeah,
Ha ha
you're
ha.
funny. Strippers love funny guys, right, John?
It's true.
And yeah, so she agrees to go to the bar and meet him there tonight as well. So we got like kind of two things happening at the bar, like two people going there besides him. And then we see him going to like a really tall building, and he goes to the 53rd floor, which just happens to be the woman who framed him's office building. It's her main office, and she works for, it's her company, and she works, and it's called Dietrich Securities. So like she's obviously, into cybersecurity is what I'm assuming. Um, so, and he gets in there by saying, "Oh, you dropped this pin. Like, it was in my bar and I found it. So I figured I'd like bring it to you." And that's how he gets in her office. And immediately as he gets in, he pulls a gun on her. And she was going to like give him a reward for it. At least so she said. It seems like she might already know what's going on, but maybe not.
Yeah, it's hard to tell 'cause some of the back and forth is really good in this, and you're not 100% sure what to believe.
Right. I kind of like that. Like, it keeps you on your toes. It's not just like straightforward, just dialogue telling you everything you need to know. Um, but yeah, so uh, he pulls a gun on her. She's like, "What, do you want another zero at the end of this?" And he's like, "How about I shoot you because you ruined my life?" And she's like, "What'd I do?" And he's like, "Remember the pictures you uploaded onto people's computers?" And she's like, "Oh." And then we find out basically this was like a college prank. Like, she was in college with her friends, taking cybersecurity classes and all this stuff. And she was like, I guess they found on the dark web, I guess, or maybe it's not even the dark web back then. It's just the web. Because I think back then, like the World Wide Web, this was from 2002. So the World Wide Web was still fairly new. And, and like the idea that like, oh, anything could be on there is kind of true at that time. Like the regular web was the dark web back then. So, so, um, so she was like, she found these pictures with her friends on the internet and was like, "Okay, well, you know what? We're going to send these to like random, we're going to like write a program that's going to send these pictures to random people's emails, or like on their hard drives. And then, it will call the police or something." And is that what it does? Maybe it doesn't call the police, but it puts these on their computer. And then, she didn't know she didn't know any of the people that it got put on there. It was just the virus or the program, like, did it
Just
randomly.
randomly, whoever happened to be online at that time.
Right. So it just happened to pick him. He's like, "Holy shit." It was like a random event. And then either the FBI was monitoring those pictures, or his wife found him on on his computer and called the police. We don't know exactly what the order of events was of how the FBI found it. But she is like, "You know what else I can do? I can go into your bank account right now and add a couple zeros onto your, statements." So she puts like, we see $1 million on the screen in his bank account, and then also $1 million for his son and $1 million for his wife. And she's like, "Look, we can just leave it here. You don't have to kill me, and you get a bunch of money." And it's a like win-win for both of us. And eventually she does talk him into this thing, and he's like, "Sounds good." Um, and then as he's about to leave, she's like, She's like, "Oh, my brooch. You stole it, didn't you? Didn't you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And before he can answer, she's like, "You're not an honest man at all," and she shoots him in the head with his own gun, the one that he brought to kill her. So she kills him. Uh, Now, John, you were wondering about this. In the background of them talking, they keep cutting to the next building across the way, and there's like basically Die Hard is happening in the building across the way. Like there's just
Yeah.
helicopters and people shooting through windows and all this crazy shit going on while they're just having a regular conversation about, you know, how this child porn got on his computer and how she can make up for it, kind of thing. And you were confused, but I know because I've read enough 100 Bullets that the guy in the other building that they keep cutting to is a main character for future arcs. So I think the arc that we're seeing in the background is probably going to be like the next arc or the arc after that.
Okay. It's
Yeah,
just setting up something fun for people who keep reading on. You're like,
yeah, you're just like, what the fuck is going on the other side of the street? So
yeah, that was the thing. Like there, it shows their conversation, and then it zooms out, and you're inside of another building with action shit going on. But then you can see the building that they're having a conversation in the background with little word blurbs coming out of the window of that building. So I was like, wait a minute.
yeah, like there's all this like Die Hard stuff that we're seeing, and then you just see across the way there's a word balloon with a tail going into the other building where Lee and her name's Megan are talking, and so they're just showing the word balloons, and we're like, okay, the conversation is continuing, but what's going on in this building where all this crazy shit's happening? So, yeah, basically, we find out that she doesn't care. She kills him, and her security comes in. Then she's like, hey, now I know that this guy, that Graves isn't dead. She calls someone at some palatial estate. Uh, I don't know exactly why, but this guy kills. He's like it's probably like a mob boss kind of thing. He's got like a mob mansion, that he's sitting in. He's cutting oranges. We don't see his face at all, but he's got like what looks like a boxer with him, and he's cutting oranges. And Megan, the woman who framed Lee, says, I have disturbing news. Graves isn't dead. And then we just hear a yelp, and basically the guy just killed his dog with the knife that he was cutting an orange with, I guess, because he's mad. Is that what
I
happens?
assume I assumed it was because he's Mexican. The dog was just sitting there wanting some of that orange. That was so. This is the worst panel in the whole comic. Just some asshole killing a dog.
That's the worst panel in the whole comic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look, the guy got his head blown off. Yeah, he shouldn't have taken a deal with someone who obviously had a lot of power to be able to do that. Like, put the money in and then shoot her. Like you couldn't take a deal with her. But anyway, but yeah, who the fuck is this asshole?
Yeah, I don't know, but apparently he's probably going to be, in the next comics, I'm assuming. Um, but basically it's like, okay, we can maybe assume that 13 with the hand brooch, maybe that's the name of like the agency that she works for or something, some other agency in the background.
That's true. She did say it was passed down through her family, so maybe there's something to go there.
Then we like at the very end of this issue, we go back to the bar that Lee worked at, and his boss is all pissed off because he hasn't come in. And then like his son and the stripper show up. Lee's son and the stripper show up, and they're like waiting, and they're like, "Where's Lee?" And they're like, "We like we want to know too, kid." And then like the stripper sits down next to him. I like to think the stripper and the son got together.
That's where my brain went too. It's
Yeah.
like, oh well, at least
It's a
at least there
happy
was
ending
some
for
kind of
him
happy ending. Someone.
and her, maybe. But yeah. So yeah, they leave it at that basically. Then we get like a little mini story. I think this is not even another issue. I think it might just be the back of one of the issues or something, because it doesn't seem like a full issue's worth of story here. Um,
No, this
but
is just like giving you a little taste of again that this Mr. Graves has been doing this and giving people briefcases with 100 bullets and a gun and
yeah, so we we go to a police station this time, and we see some like gangbangers are waiting to get some of their people out from bail, and they're all pissed off and they're yelling at the cops, and the cops are like, "We'll get to them. They'll be out when they're out. Calm down." And so we see this old lady walk in, and she's like, "I'd like to confess to a murder." And they're like, "What?" And so they like bring up this detective whose name Choice Nell. Is it Choice Nell? I don't know how to say his name. Um, but whatever his name is.
Choice now. It's her, and her name is Miss Bug.
Yes, so Miss Bug is trying to confess to murder, and so Detective Choice Nell is like, fine, I'll take her statement, because apparently the person she murdered was the person that, like, someone that he was on the case of 3 years ago. For not for murder. Apparently, the guy died of a heart attack, is what he wrote it up as, or what it was written up as. But he remembers the case, and just says, "Oh, that was just a heart attack. It wasn't anything." So apparently, like, the scene was cleaned, probably because, as we know, if you do this thing with briefcase, we find out that she was given a briefcase by Graves. So if you do this, like, just gets wiped away, like it was not a murder, it's just a heart attack or whatever. So she confesses, and people are kind of like yelling in the background. It's kind of hectic and craziness is going on. Um, and we do find out that, like, Choice Nell has someone in one of the rooms waiting, like one of the interview rooms. They're like, "You got that guy back there?" He's like, "Yeah, he's waiting. I'll get done with this lady and then we'll go there." So she just basically, the old woman feels guilty for killing that kid, or for killing the person. It's not a kid, but the person. Um, and so she, like, it's been 3 years and she is racked with guilt, so she's giving herself up. Um, but they don't arrest her. They're just like, okay, whatever. Like, um, you're free to go because, like, we have no evidence and, like, you can't just confess and we'll arrest you, kind of thing. So they let her go. And as they let her go, we see, she says, like, she looks at his desk.
I did like a little bit of the backstory. Like, basically, it was like there was he was like the owner of the building they lived in, and like they used lead paint, and her kid ate lead paint, and so he lost brain function, and she was like, oh, she basically he knew that there was lead in the paint, and uh, didn't tell anybody about it, so that's why she killed him.
Yeah, so she killed him because, he hurt her son, uh, by not doing a good job with the building upkeep and everything. And then she looks over and she sees, like, a picture on his desk of his wife, and she's like, "Oh, she's very pretty." He says, "Yeah, she was very beautiful. I was lucky to have known her." So obviously she's dead. Then, like, he escorts the woman out, and then we see, like, the guy that was waiting for his dad to get out on bail. He, shows up. Um, he's like, "Oh my God, Pops, can't wait for you to come home." And then, like, we cut to Choice Nell, Detective Choice Nell, who goes into that private room where he had someone waiting, and we see the person waiting is Agent Graves. Uh, and then Agent Graves, opens the briefcase, and Choice Nell looks inside and sees the man who I'm assuming killed his wife and kid. As a kid too, or is it just wife?
At least just his wife. I
Okay,
didn't
I
see
think
a
it's just
picture
his
of a
wife.
kid.
Yeah, yeah. Is the person that was waiting for his dad. So he's like, "I'm gonna fucking kill this guy that we just saw in the hall being a dickhead." So, uh, and it leaves it there. So yeah, that's the end of it. So John, what'd you give it, and what'd you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, going into it, I thought it was going to be one character we followed. So it was cool to have like see like, what's more of like there's an organization that is, or at least someone who works for an organization is giving these people a way to get some kind of revenge for a really horrible wrong. So yeah, it made it really cool. It was a very interesting dynamic to it, and all the stories were very unique. So yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a fun story choice, and the art was really good. Like you said, it was you know kind of like grungy and whatnot. And then in a lot of the main scenes that kind of show the bad things that have been happening, and then stuff or the strip clubs and whatnot, those scenes were usually like shadows and really bright colors like oranges, reds, and yellows and whatnot. So yeah, it was really very well done. I liked it a lot. um i would give it I would give it an 8. It was really intriguing. Like, I definitely would like to know more of where things go.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one. I think this first volume isn't the strongest, like, compared to some of the other ones. Especially, like, once you get into the whole premise of the book, or of the series, it's like it only gets better. Um, and as things start to tie together and all the storylines kind of maybe mix and come together, it's like, oh, like there's this whole thing, right? So I think it gets better. I'm going to give this one a 6.5. I think it's definitely a good read and it's a good start, but it gets so much better. I can't give it higher than that. and also, like, I found the first 3 issues, like, a lot of it is in like slang, and some of it was hard to figure out exactly what they were saying sometimes. I don't know if you felt like that.
The first issue, there definitely was a lot of slang, especially when it was like all the gang members talking and apostrophes in words and extra syllables and things. So yeah, it definitely was like, oh, okay, wait a minute, I gotta really pay attention to the wording here to make sure I get what's.
Yeah. Yeah, so it took me a while to like get into it. I think because of the like language and slang and all that stuff. But once I was into it, the second story was fantastic. The third little story here was cool too. At first, I was like, "Where's this going?" It's very hectic, this third story, because there's like a bunch of people yelling in the police office and everything. So, um, it's all over the place. But then the payoff at the end is so good. It's like, okay, I want to know what happens next. It definitely leaves you on a cliffhanger where you're like, I want to know what happens next. So, and they set up the whole thing with like that other group of people, the mysterious, you know. Clandestine group in the background. So on both sides, you got Agent Graves and whoever he works for, and then you got these people who the guy that killed the dog or whatever. But um, so yeah, I think it's a good start. It's not like the greatest start ever, but it is intriguing and it makes you want to like continue reading. So and it only gets better from here. So I'm going to give it a 6.5. You give it an 8. And then next time we're going to do a poll. We're doing kind of like just a bunch of characters and stuff that we haven't done before that we were interested in reading. So we'll put up the poll for those. And if you'd like to vote on that poll, you can become a patron at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And speaking of that, we'd like to thank our patrons, Hoku, Otaku, Mike, Christian, Matthew, Kyla, Joseph, Kalia, Isaiah, and Kevin. You guys are awesome. You keep the lights on and keep us going. So, yeah, you can vote on that. The second podcast of every month is a voted podcast by our Patreons members, and then we're doing Preacher Book 1 for the exclusive Patreon episode this month, which I'm very excited about. John, have you read, or do you know anything about Preacher?
I know that they made a series of it too, but um I guess it's kind of like a by the numbers, not by the numbers, but like an investigation type thing with a preacher and like demons, something like that.
No, not at all.
Oh, not at all. Okay, well, then I had a different idea about it completely. Well, good. Then I'm super blind into this. I won't know. But yeah, that'll be our Patreon exclusive episode. All Patreon members get to vote on our second episode and get an exclusive episode every month just for them. Patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books.
Yes.
We appreciate you all.
Yes, we do. And with that, we will see you guys on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.